Hello there, you are going to be watching the lecture for September 9th class for Integrated Math 3 concerning the topic of dividing polynomials. So let's get started. Alright, so here you see a screen that you would see for problem set in Khan Academy. So the problem is right here, as you can see. I just want to point out this so you don't get confused by it, but it says divide the polynomials. The form of your answer should be either p of x or p of x plus k over x minus 5, where p of x is a polynomial and k is an integer. So what this is telling you is that if there's no remainder, so in other words, if x minus 5 divides evenly into this polynomial on the top, there's no remainder. And so your answer will just be a polynomial, so p of x. But you could have a remainder. So if your remainder is, say, k, it'll be a number, but whatever that number is will go on the top of this fraction here. So if you have a remainder of 3, that means your answer will be a polynomial. So you still have the polynomial part, but then you'll have this additional part where you have the remainder over x minus 5. Okay, so don't let this confuse you. It's just telling you that it might be a polynomial because it goes into it evenly, or it might be a polynomial with a remainder. Okay, so don't let that confuse you. Alright, so let's get started working out through the problem here. Alright, so I've switched over to a whiteboard here so we can write this puppy out. So here's our problem. So we write it out like this, just like you were doing division on numbers, which you learned probably 4th or 5th grade. So the process goes like this. So you're looking at your first term inside. So in this case, we're going to start with 5x cubed, and then you're going to look at your first term on your divisor. Okay, and so you're going to ask and think to yourself, this x times what is going to give me 5x to the third. Okay, so that's really what division is. So in this case, it's going to be 5x squared. So we're going to put that right here. So our quotient, our answer, goes on the top, and we're going to keep it lined up according to the degree, which means basically the power of the x. So all the x squared should be lined up vertically, because eventually we're going to be subtracting and or adding like terms together. So once we figure out what this number is, I'm going to go ahead and erase my little red lines here so we don't get confused by them as we go along. So once I figure out the first term of my quotient, then I need to multiply. So remember, when you are multiplying by a factor that has two terms, you have to use distributive property and multiply by both these terms. So we have to do 5x squared times x. So that's going to be 5x to the third. And then 5x squared times negative 5. So that's going to be negative 25x squared. And notice how we keep everything lined up according to the degree, because now we have to subtract. So when you subtract, you have to be very careful, because this is a very common mistake students make. What I usually do is I'll just change my signs and then I'll just circle it. So this was a positive, so I know when I'm subtracting it, it's going to change to a negative. This was already a negative, so if I'm subtracting a negative, it actually becomes a positive. Okay, and so I circle those so I am absolutely sure what my sign's going to be. And so now we subtract. So we have 5x cubed minus 5x cubed. Well, that's going to be 0x cubed. Okay, or nothing, basically. And then here we have a negative 22x squared plus 25x squared. So you look at the coefficients, you add those together. We have a positive and a negative, which means we're basically going to do 25 minus 22, which is going to be positive 3x squared. All right, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to drop down this next term here, this negative 17x, and now we're going to start it all over again. And I'm going to erase this because this is basically a 0. It'll let me erase this. Okay. And so now we have to start the process over again, but using my new leading term here. So my new big term here is 3x squared. So x times what is 3x squared? Well, it's going to be a positive 3x. And again, I want to keep everything lined up. Notice all my x squareds are lined up, all my x's are lined up, and we're going to try to keep everything lined up as we go. So now I need to go and use this next term of my quotient, of my answer, that's 3x, multiplied by both terms of my divisor. So I do 3x times x, 3x squared, and then 3x times negative 5. That's going to be a negative 15x. Okay, now I'm subtracting, so I change my signs. Sorry, that's a plus. Hard to read my writing sometimes. These are going to cancel out. 3x squared minus 3x squared is 0. Here we have negative 17x plus 15x. That's going to be negative 2x. The 17 is bigger, so we keep the sign of the bigger number. And then now I need to drop my constant down, and then we have to do this one more time. Again, I'm looking at x times what is going to give me negative 2x. Well, this is going to be negative 2. So now multiply negative 2 times both terms here, negative 2 times x. Negative 2 times negative 5 is going to give me a plus 10. Now I'm subtracting, so I'm going to change my signs. So negative 2x plus 2x, that's going to be a 0. 11 minus 10, that's going to be a plus 1. So this is my remainder right here. Okay, so my quotient's written up here. So I'm going to write this out. This is the part of my answer. I'll write it out over here. 5x squared plus 3x minus 2, and then plus 1 over, that's my remainder of 1, over my divisor, x minus 5. So this is my answer. Alright, so I'm going to go back to Khan Academy and type that puppy in, and hopefully we got it right. Alright, so we got 5x squared. So you'll notice you get some nice little functions that pop up. So this little a to the b goes to your exponents. When you're done with your exponents, use your arrow key so you're telling the computer that your exponent is done. So we have 5x squared plus 3x minus 2 and then we have a remainder of 1. So now you need to use a fraction, so we are adding. So I'm going to use fraction. I'm going to do 1 over, and then the bottom is going to be x minus 5. So hopefully we got this right. Moment of truth, and finally we got it correct. Alright, so I want to do one more that is a little bit different, and there's a tricky part of this one. Okay, so here's the problem. X squared minus 49 is being divided by x plus 7. We want to find that quotient. Okay, so I'm going to go back now. I have this pre-done in my whiteboard. So let's go back to whiteboard. And let's move over here. Alright, so note our original problem, remember, it looked like this. X squared, whoops, not plus, minus 49 divided by x plus 7. So when we are going to divide this out long ways, notice for our dividend, notice there's no x term. It goes from x to the second to a constant. There's no x to the first. So this is a tricky problem because if you do not put in this plus 0x, you're probably going to forget that that is even there. And if you do that, you're going to end up with an x term later, and you're going to be like, whoa, what do I do with it? And you might, I don't know, from that point, you can make any number of mistakes. But eventually you will have to add this 0x to something else. And so that is why whenever you're missing a term, or if there's a degree missing, always add a placeholder with 0 times whatever the degree is missing. Okay, so for instance, if there's a if you have something like x cubed minus x plus 7, when you're doing your division, you need to write it like this: x cubed. Notice there's no x squared. So what you would do is you would put a placeholder 0x squared. Notice 0 times x squared is still 0. It doesn't change this. It's just leaving a place for it, leaving a space for it, so that when you have to add it up, you can keep everything lined up. And then from there, it would just be like normal. Okay? So if you forget to do that, it's going to cause problems for you. Okay? So always make sure you leave a column for every degree, even if there's not that degree term in your original dividend. Okay? So the actual problem here, I don't think is going to be very bad. But if you don't put this plus 0x, it becomes a lot harder. All right. So process is as we were just doing. So we're looking at our first terms, our biggest terms. X times what is x squared? Well, it's going to be x times x is x squared. And again, this is a quantity, just like distributive property. You have to do x times x as x squared. 7 times x is going to give you a plus 7x. Now this is where if you didn't have this column here, you would probably be very likely to make a mistake here. Okay. Now remember, we're always subtracting, so change our signs. X squared minus x squared, well, that's going to be 0. I don't really want to write that there. And then we have 0x minus 7x. So that's going to be a negative 7x. Okay, the plus 0x doesn't change anything, but at least we have this column here, so we have space to write this. Okay, and now we're going to, of course, bring down our negative 49 here. And so now, process continues. X, we're looking right here. X times what is going to give me negative 7x? Well, that's going to be a negative 7. Now multiply, use distributive property, negative 7 times x. Negative 7 times 7, that's going to be negative 49. Now I'm subtracting, so these are both negative, so if I'm subtracting a negative, both cases I'm adding. So these are actually both going to cancel out. Negative 7x plus 7x is 0. Negative 49 plus 49 is also 0. So there's actually no remainder here. And so your answer is right here, x minus 7. Okay, so let's go back now to Khan Academy. We think our answer is x minus 7. So let's put it in. And we got it. All right. So that's the end of the lecture, and thanks for listening, and have a great day.